Hey there. Ready to unpack some seriously interesting data? Today we're diving into the world of sexual behavior in India.
We're using data from the National Family Health Survey, or NFHS5 for short.
This survey is like a gold mine of information on pretty much everything, including, well,
And what's really cool about this particular deep dive is that we get to break things down by region.
So we're going beyond just national averages.
Yeah, we're getting granular, seeing how cultural and social factors play a role in different parts of the country.
Because let's be real, thinking of India as a single entity when it comes to something as complex as sexual behavior.
Way too simplistic.
Right. And even getting this kind of data from India is a feat in itself.
Considering the cultural sensitivities around talking about sex openly, yeah.
Data on the screen, numbers come alive. Male, female flows where the patterns thrive. Visual charts, public colors unify. Gender decoded, bringing truth to light. Small drum fill. We break it down, real talk. Trends unveiling, facts from every block. Here's your insight, watch the data glide. Gender decoded, let the beats collide.
Today, we're focusing on relationships.
Sounds juicy.
It is! This deep dive is all about uncovering these intriguing regional variations we found in the data.
Okay.
And, figuring out what those variations might tell us about Indian society as a whole.
I like it.
We're going to be zeroing in on the number of reported sexual partners.
Right.
Which, can be a window into cultural norms and attitudes.
Absolutely. Though, essential to remember, this is self-reported data.
Oh, of course, of course.
So individual comfort levels and societal pressures can definitely influence the results.
For sure, for sure. It's not just about the raw numbers, right?
Yeah.
It's about the context.
Absolutely.
So let's start with the national averages.
Okay.
Men in India report an average of 2.1 sexual partners in their lifetime,
Okay.
while women report 1.7.
Interesting.
But like we said, these averages are just a starting point.
Right, because India is vast and diverse.
Exactly. And that diversity is, well, it's really reflected in the regional patterns that we see in the data. It's like each state has its own unique story to tell.
It does.
So let's kick off our little virtual tour, shall we?
Let's do it.
We'll start in the Northeast.
Okay.
A region, known for its distinct cultural traditions.
Oh, yeah.
In Meghalaya,
Yeah.
the average number of reported partners for men is, are you ready for this?
Hit me.
9.6.
Whoa. 9.6. That's quite a bit higher than the national average.
Right. In the Northeast as a whole, it often challenges conventional norms.
It does, yeah.
I mean, matrilineal traditions are prevalent in some communities where lineage and inheritance are traced through the mother's side. And you also have more flexible marital norms and these unique local customs that might contribute to these higher numbers.
Makes sense.
But even within the Northeast, you see these variations.
Oh, I bet.
Sikkim, for example, has an average of 7.1 partners for men.
Okay.
So it really makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what are the specific cultural nuances at play in each of these states?
That's the beauty of this data, right?
Right.
It raises more questions than it answers.
It really does.
And it prompts us to, really dig deeper. Consider the cultural tapestry of each region.
Okay, from the mountains of the Northeast, let's head south to the coastal state of Kerala.
All right.
Here we see, a starkly different picture,
Oh.
with men reporting an average close to one partner.
Wow, so almost the opposite end of the
For
spectrum.
most, yeah. And what's intriguing about Kerala
Yeah.
is its high literacy rate.
Oh, right.
So could there be a correlation between education levels and relationship choices?
That's a good question.
It challenges the assumption, right, that more liberal attitudes always lead to a higher number of partners.
For sure. It really highlights the complexity of this whole issue.
And we also see relatively low averages in Lakshadweep, another southern region.
Okay.
Could there be shared cultural or religious influences at play there?
Possibly, yeah. Emphasizing monogamy, maybe?
It's fascinating. And then you have Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, also in the south, where the numbers are a bit more spread out,
Okay.
suggesting a wider range of relationship norms.
So even within a region, right, you see
Yeah.
this significant diversity.
Totally.
Yeah, it reminds us that we can't make these sweeping generalizations.
Nope.
Each state, even each community within a state, has its own set of influences shaping individual behavior.
Okay, now let's journey to North and West India. States like Punjab, Haryana, and the surrounding areas, they show a relative uniformity in the data.
Huh, interesting.
Could this point to shared cultural values or historical influences?
It's certainly possible. The North has its own distinct social fabric
Right.
that might influence these relationship patterns.
But hold on, there's an outlier in the mix.
Who is it?
Rajasthan
Rajasthan.
throws us a curveball with women reporting an average of 3.1 partners,
Oh,
one of the highest in the country.
that's really interesting.
What could be driving this unexpected trend in Rajasthan?
Right. Is it about reporting openness, unique demographics,
Yeah.
or are there cultural factors we haven't even considered yet?
It really underscores the need to delve deeper into the context of each region.
Yeah, it's a great example of how data can spark curiosity,
It does.
and lead to a much, much richer understanding of a culture. Yeah, it's a great example of how data can spark curiosity
It does.
and lead to a much, much richer understanding of a culture.
Yep. Okay, so we've seen this incredible regional variation, but there's this one consistent pattern across the data that we need to address.
Oh, yeah.
Almost everywhere, men report a higher average number of partners than women.
Right.
Why do you think that is?
Well, this isn't unique to India.
Right.
It's a global trend.
Right.
And there are several possible explanations.
Okay.
Societal expectations and gender roles
Yeah.
can play a big part.
Okay.
In many cultures, men are often encouraged to be more sexually experienced,
Mm-hmm.
while women face greater social stigma around multiple partners.
Right. It's like there's this double standard at play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this double standard can influence not just behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but also how comfortable people feel reporting their experiences honestly.
Okay.
We have to consider the possibility that men might be more likely to over-report,
Yeah.
while women might under-report
Right.
due to those societal
Yeah.
pressures.
So the numbers might not reflect a perfect reality.
Right. But they still give us these clues about those underlying social dynamics.
Absolutely. Data is always just one piece of the puzzle.
For sure.
It's the conversations we have around the data, the exploration of those nuances that can lead to real insight.
Speaking of nuances,
Yeah.
there are a few other interesting details in the data that caught my eye.
Okay, like what?
For example, in Goa and Haryana,
Yeah.
the averages for men and women are surprisingly close.
Huh. That's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
Makes you wonder if there are specific cultural factors in those states that promote greater gender equality when it comes to sexual behavior.
Right.
Or perhaps there are other influences affecting reporting in those areas.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we need to avoid jumping to conclusions.
Totally.
And really consider all the possible explanations.
We also touched on the Kerala paradox earlier.
Right.
High literacy rates, but relatively low numbers of reported partners.
Yeah.
Is there anything more you can tell us about the potential factors driving that?
Well, it's certainly thought-provoking.
It is.
Could it be that education leads to different risk assessments
Okay.
and relationship choices? Maybe access to information about sexual health plays a role?
Yeah.
Or perhaps there are unique cultural values around privacy and modesty in Kerala
Interesting.
that influence reporting.
Yeah.
It's a complex interplay of factors that would be fascinating to unpack further.
It really highlights the fact that sometimes the most interesting insights come from the places where our initial assumptions are challenged.
Precisely. It's a reminder that there's always more to learn,
Always.
more layers to uncover.
Okay, one last detail I wanted to mention
Yeah.
is the potential urban-rural divide.
Okay.
While the data doesn't break it down specifically, we can see hints of it in how the numbers vary within states.
Okay.
Do you think there are significant differences in sexual behavior between urban and rural areas in India?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And I think it's very likely. Urban centers tend to offer greater anonymity and exposure to diverse perspectives.
Yeah.
People might feel less bound by traditional norms in those settings.
I see.
Rural communities, on the other hand, often have tighter social networks
Right.
and more deeply rooted traditions that can influence behavior.
It's almost like a social experiment, right?
It is.
How do people adapt their relationship patterns when they are, removed from their familiar cultural surroundings?
It's a fascinating question.
It is.
And those shifts in behavior can have ripple effects on families and communities as a whole.
We also can't forget the influence of religion.
Oh, of course, of course.
India is a melting pot of faiths.
It is.
Each with its own set of beliefs and practices related to sexuality.
Absolutely. Religious teachings and social customs can play a significant role in shaping attitudes towards premarital sex, marriage, and the number of partners considered acceptable.
It's like each of these factors, culture, education, economics, religion, adds a thread to the tapestry of sexual behavior in India, creating this incredibly rich and diverse landscape that we're trying to understand.
It's a beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
And as we've seen throughout this deep dive, data can be a powerful tool for revealing those threads and helping us appreciate the complexity of human behavior.
But we also have to be mindful of the limitations of data.
Of course, we're dealing with self-reported information. Right. And there are always biases and social pressures that can influence how people respond to sensitive questions.
So how do we interpret this data, knowing that it's, filtered through those subjective lenses?
It's about approaching the data with a critical eye.
Okay.
Acknowledging those limitations and recognizing that the numbers are just a starting point. It's the conversations we have around the data,
right,
the exploration of those potential biases that can lead to a deeper understanding.
It's a reminder that statistics can tell us a lot.
They can.
But they can't tell us everything.
No.
We need to dig deeper, consider the human stories behind the numbers to truly grasp the complexities of sexual behavior in any culture. So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've seen the national averages, explored those fascinating regional variations, and even delved into some of the complex factors that might be driving these patterns.
Right.
What's your biggest takeaway from all of this?
I think for me, it really just reinforces the idea that there's no single narrative when it comes to sexual behavior in India.
Yeah.
It's a country of incredible diversity.
It is.
And that diversity is reflected in the data.
For sure.
We see this complex interplay of cultural norms, education levels, economic influences, and individual choices, all shaping the landscape of relationships.
It's like we've been on this incredible journey across India, not just geographically, but also culturally and socially.
Exactly.
And it highlights the importance of moving beyond simplistic assumptions and really embracing that complexity.
Absolutely.
We've seen how data can be a powerful tool for challenging our preconceptions and prompting us to ask, deeper questions.
Absolutely.
And those questions can lead us to a richer understanding, not just of a specific culture, but of human behavior in general.
I agree.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I'd say this data is an invitation to keep exploring, to keep questioning, and to keep challenging our own biases.
I like that.
It's a reminder that there's always more to learn, more perspectives to consider, and more nuances to uncover.
It's a reminder that the world is full of fascinating stories waiting to be told.
It is.
And sometimes the most unexpected insights come from the places where we're willing to dig a little deeper.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the diverse sexual landscape of India.